Hi, everybody. Welcome to the 15-Minute Rev. Merry Christmas. I think we're on the 7th of December right now. Finally getting on into December. I'm excited, though, right now, actually, because I've got a great word, and God is moving us into the holidays. I love this time of the year, actually. I think it's a fun time of the year. I hope you guys have already got your Christmas shopping started and that you're moving into the holiday spirit, even though it's kind of a strange holiday season. Happy Monday. It's actually been a busy day, and I know I'm running extremely late, like an hour and a half late. And so I'm going to go ahead and jump on into the word. But yeah, I've got a great word for you today. There's a lot of stuff going on. The transition has started. Definitely the transition has started, and we're starting to see the things of the Spirit move and get positioned for manifestation into what God told us he would do. And so welcome to the 15-Minute Rev, guys. Happy Monday. Again, Merry Christmas. I hope you guys have started to have a wonderful holiday season, despite what's going on around us in the nation and despite the stresses that are involved in it. But I want to encourage you to keep your faith, keep your focus, and definitely stay in the spirit of love, because God's a faithful God. Hey, guys, good afternoon to you. I want to welcome you guys. Welcome on board if I can talk today. But yeah, today's going to actually be an interesting conversation. And I want to preface the conversation with this. I'm not angry when I talk to you. If I give you a hard word, I'm not angry. I have a very strong type A personality. And so the natural inclination of my personality is to be intense. But I'm not ever angry at you. I'm not mad at anybody. I'm just conveying what God has told me through my quiet time with him. And this actually is out of the word in my interpretation of what he said. But it's a day-by-day conversation that I have with the Lord. And it's just amazing how he just keeps turning the page forward. I'm sorry for being late. I'm really can't. I can't apologize more for being late. It's just been that busy of a morning. I've had a whole lot of things happen already this morning for good. They're all good. But if you haven't been able to discern, witchcraft has ratcheted up another level. You probably or hopefully hit another level. I know our teams hit another level this morning, and it's already prompted another level of attacks. And so the devil's getting more cunning. He does not want you entering into the new as you get ready to transition out of contraction point 4. That's what part of this battle is about too. You're finishing up. We're heading and wrapping up. We're halfway almost through contraction point 4, heading into the new contraction point 1 again, to where we start the process all over again for 2021. Do you really think he wants you there? No, he didn't want you there. He wants you stuck on this level. He would prefer you to stay stuck in some level of contraction point 2. But no. You said no. You said no. I'm going on through. And so God bless you. God bless you. So we're going to start off and get on into the topic this morning. I don't have any news. I feel like the news right now is just kind of steady. They're fighting it out and battling it out in Georgia. And so if you haven't been following that, you can follow that on Gateway Pundit or through Lucian News. They're both excellent news sources, as well as OAN and Newsmax. So definitely check that out. As far as our team, please spread the word. We're not having tonight's service. I'm going to give you guys the evening off because we had such a strong time this morning. And I think everybody needs kind of a break to kind of, regroup and spend time with family and whatnot. And so we press hard through this time of the year. We press hard all year long. And so I just think the Lord told me that today. So I'll put that up on the boards. If you feel led, Brenda, can you do that? Please. That'd be a blessing. But anyhow, what's the Lord saying about witchcraft attacks? What's the Lord saying about witchcraft attacks? This is what I feel like he's saying. The enemy's already amassing his forces. Well, let me back up. Let me tell you the title first. Sorry, Lord. Got ahead of you. It's called Dawning Reign. It's Dawning, D-A-W-N-I-N-G, Reign, R-E-I-G-N. You're learning to rule and reign with God in heavenly places. / making sure your private equals your public. Are you the same in private as you are in public? / God of War. Now that's pretty strong. Pretty strong title. If it gives you any kind of inclination as to what the topic matter is going to be about. So what's witchcraft hitting you with right now? It's just what I said. You've shifted up, they've shifted up. Okay? So we can anticipate that all throughout the year, as you shift, the devil's going to shift. The light gets lighter, the dark gets darker. So the enemy's now focused and targeting on your weaknesses, trying to he's desperate to stop you. Desperate to stop you. Because a lot of you have already hit the point of no return. You're hitting the place where you're recognizing the tactics. The devil never changes his tactics. It's always the old, hi guys, good afternoon. But he never changes his mode of op. He's always the same. And just like God's the same yesterday, today, and forever, so is the devil. That's one thing I can say he's true to. He's always the same. He's the father of lies. He's deceitful. He preys, P-R-E-Y-S, on your weaknesses, trying to trip you up with you and the things that so easily beset you, which leads us right into the topic matter. So the enemy is already amassing his forces in his attempt to stop the move of God. God's move to shift, he told me this word 3 times, shift the nation. And this shifting in the nation has begun. It's actually started slowly, but that shift has really started to become noticeable in the past 2 days. I don't know about you, but I'm starting to see it. Hey, good afternoon, Al Lockett. So we're finally seeing the manifestation of that shift as we watch the news, the courts, and the spirit. Okay? You can definitely feel it. You can definitely sense it. I don't know about you, but I can feel it. I can sense it by the spirit. I don't feel, I sense it. But it's like things have strengthened up around me. And I'm like, whoa. And it really got strong this morning on our prayer call with God the Father showing up. And I'm thinking, whoa, he's showing up more and more now, which is really, it's really cool because I feel like, I'm sorry, y'all. But I do sense this. I've been sensing this now for probably about 2.5 weeks, maybe 3, where the Lord is moving us into the times like Israel experienced when they came out of Egypt, where they followed the deliverer out of Egypt, Moses. They followed the Moses. Well, a lot of you are Moseses in the land. I don't know if you realize that. For your regions all around the world, you have a Moses anointing on you, where God is utilizing you in your regions, in your states, in your countries around the world, to where you're being used to take people, hopefully through deliverance, but you're being used as a deliverer to help people know the way in which they're to walk. You're a front runner. Moses was a front runner. Jesus was a front runner. John the Baptist was a front runner. Gosh, David was a front runner. They all carry these brand new moves of God. And so the front runners are stepping into position right now. And we're starting to lead the body out and through into the new. And so this is where we're at right now, but we're finally seeing this shift. And the Lord says you need to be very, very careful the next 4 months, intercessor, front runner, the next 4 months. This is the first time in history, in the history of America, actually, where God has begun to use the intercessors and to use the front runners as one blade of grass in the spirit. I've talked about that the last 2 revs. We're learning to move as an entire body in a fluid movement, in a fluid motion with the Lord as he leads the cloud by day, the pillar of fire by night, just like Israel did, learning to follow the cloud, learning to move, learning to pray, learning to give, learning how to sow, learning how to plow, learning how to war. You're learning to move with him. And so the Lord's saying, as you move with me, I'm teaching you my ways. I'm teaching you my patterns and how I do things season to season. And that's why a lot of you who are analytic or prophetic have started to be able to recognize these things year to year. And that's also a part of learning to step into the contraction points per year, because there are 4, those are the 4 chambers of God's heart. Remember, I told you that. Each contraction point represents a chamber of God's heart. And so you learn about what patterns exist in each contraction point, what pros and cons exist at each contraction point, to learn how to overthrow the enemy in each contraction point and move up through your pros. You're learning to use the strengths of God and to battle your cons. Those are the things we con God with about ourselves. That's what I say. Or really a better word is a trigger. Things that trigger us, unhealed areas within us. Those are the things that can so easily beset you in the contraction points. And you're learning to move with the cloud. Good for you. Good for you, for those of you who've stayed the course. Good for you. I'm very proud of you. This is a tough thing to do, to learn to come up out of ourselves and into the things of the Spirit, because it always costs you something. I always tell our team that it'll always cost you something. It's never going to be easy. And I'm not going to lie to you and sit here and try to blow smoke and tell you, oh, this is going to be a wonderful ride. It's been a difficult ride for a lot of us. It's been a very, very difficult ride. But the Lord's saying, I'm in it with you. And this morning, when we stepped out onto the battlefield, God the Father stepped out onto it with us. Because a king never lets his troops go out into battle alone. He always goes into battle with his troops. And so when I felt God, and I've seen Jesus do this twice now, which I've never seen him in my whole walk with him. I'm 55. I've never seen Jesus do this, where Jesus stepped up beside me and he was clipping on his battle regalia, and he's clipping on his shield of faith, and he's clipping on his shield, or his breastplate of righteousness. He's clipping it all on. And I'm like, what are you doing? He said, I'm getting ready for war. And I go, wow. Wow. Okie dokie. And he said, you going with me? You gonna stay behind? Are you going with me? I'm in it. I'm with you. I'm with you. We're going. Yeah. I'm just impressed. I was impressed. It's like, wow, that's awesome. Can I ride beside you? Sounds dumb, but I'm serious. It's impressive. And he did it again this morning. And so I know we're in a season of war. It's already been prophesied. And I, before I even knew that it had been prophesied, actually, the Lord had already taken us into the courts of heaven and had us declare war through the council of elders there. It's the congressional council in the courts of heaven. And then the very next Monday, the prophet started decreeing, it's a time of war. And I thought, yeah, right on. We're in my season. That's what happens when you're a warrior. You're kind of a warrior for life. So be careful the next 4 months. This is the first time in history America has ever been used by God in the ways that he's using us. And he's saying, I need you to learn, if you haven't already, to follow my directives. You go when I say go. You go whoa when I say whoa, and stop when I say no. It's doing exactly what he tells you to do when he tells you to do it. Exactly how he tells you to do it. I don't care if anybody thinks you're weird. You do what he tells you to do. And especially the next 4 months, because the Lord told me, if you didn't hear the word, the warning I gave on here, and I still stand by it very, very strongly. I stand by this. The Lord told me in an audible voice coming around a corner, he said, when I tell you not to go somewhere the next 3 or 4 months, he goes, I need you to obey. And I thought, whoa, what does that mean? And he goes, well, things are fixing to kick up. The manifestation has begun. We've started to see a shift in the natural now in the courts. The manifestation's here. I'm telling you, it's here. So beware. So our prayers are becoming very powerful for the nation, which has caused war against the devil. But God has already prepared us for this phase and for this season, with all things being made new. Now, if I were you, I'd be excited. Merry Christmas to you. It's going to be a good Christmas. Being professional. But it is going to be a good Christmas. It's wonderful. It's wonderful to see God move like that. And it's also, it's peaceful. I mean, I've been driving around our neighborhood and looking at the Christmas lights and stuff like that. And it's just a really different spirit this year. It's not a peaceful feeling in the spirit. It's a war season. It's a war season. So I'm driving around the neighborhood thinking all these Christmas lights are up everywhere. And everybody's like, Merry Christmas and all this, and expecting that that's going to bring that peace that they're looking for. The only thing that can bring you peace is the Lord. And I'm just raising my hand up as I drive by going, peace, 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 peace. Bring peace to that house. Bring protection to that house. Bring your spirit to that house, God. Show them their peace. Pardon me, is not in their actions or in their traditions. It's in you. It's in you. Peace, 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 peace. Driving by. So we're in a season where all things are being made new. And it's based on Hosea 6:1 through 9:17. And it's called Dawning of the Rain. At first, the Lord was talking about rain from the sky, but it actually has to do with the sons and daughters of Issachar learning to rule and reign with God. Are you one of those? Do you know the signs of the times? Do you realize where you're at? Do you know how to move with the cloud? Do you know how to move with the tabernacle of God? Or are you too afraid? You're always afraid God's here to beat you upside the head. even with truth prophets like myself. The front runners, let me just tell you, we're usually not liked, and I don't have a problem with that, but until people get to know our hearts, and they're like, oh, you're not like that at all. But most front runners operate in double mercy or double truth. That's that double portion of Joseph that God's put on our vessels for the end of the times. And we have to have that in order to stand out front, because we're the first to hit the darkness, or the darkness hits us first. And then we're the first to get to the battle, the last to leave. And so we have to make sure a lot of the weaker ones get all the way through if God breaks us through. So, because that's God's mercy, man. He loves you. He loves you. But at the same time, as you hit that new level, if you're on a lower level, he expects you to do what he's called you to do, to come up higher on the mountain. He expects you to do your due diligence. He doesn't want people. And that's going to come up in this conversation today too, because God is tired of the minority carrying the majority. He's tired of it. He's tired of it. He's tired of 15% carrying the 85%. This conversation today is pretty much for the 85%. Don't leave. Don't leave. But it is. So when we come back to God, it's like the dawning of a new day. And it's God that brings the reign, or the ability to reign, R-E-I-G-N, excuse me. But he gives us the ability to reign again, to rule and reign again. And the enemy's been drying up all of America's abilities. How did he do this? He dried up our gifts. He dried up our finances. He dried up our stockpiles. In his attempt to steal the gift that God had built America to be to the world. How did he do that? He picked you off one by one. God had created you to be a people group who represented the king with a multifacetedness, a melting pot, representing all tribes of the world. And as we kept God's ordinances, our blessings continued to grow and grow until Satan began to find a different strategy. Remember, Satan was the lead strategist around the throne of God before he was kicked out of heaven. So he knew the word inside out. He knew what it would take to cause God's spirit to draw back. And that's what my new book, I'm going to keep plugging it too. You need to get this book. It comes out actually in 4 days. You can get it on Kindle in 4 days. This is talking about the demonic strategy against God's front runners. Fragmented. And this is what I'm getting into right now, and how the devil caused the Lord's Spirit to pull back from your vessel so he could ransack your courts. He could tear down your gates. He could tear down your walls of truth. You know how he did it? He started looking at all the sins in your bloodline, all the cursings in your bloodline. And then he started bringing those in and out of the courtrooms of God, continually in and out of the courtrooms of God, accusing you. Well, what's wrong with that? Because a lot of you are saying, well, who can charge God's elect? Aren't we redeemed by the blood? Sure you are. However, in the courts of heaven, if you don't go in and you don't face your accuser, and you don't even know you're supposed to face your accuser, those accusations stand in the courts of heaven, and they can cause you to become barren. They cause you to allow the enemy to come in more and more and more to where he can ransack your life. That's what he did. And so what happened was the enemy came in, and then he started hitting God's people as he started ransacking our walls. We have an outer court, an inner court leading into a holy of holies. Within these courts, within these gates, within each court are gates and walls. And so as he would tear down, there were 12 tribes around your outer courts. And then there are 7 gates. Those are 12 tribes, 12 gates. And then there are 7 gates around your inner courts, 7 gates to the heart. As he tore down the 12 gates, he ransacked them. He tore down your identity. That was done through Jezebel. And as he tore down your identity and left you kind of aimlessly wandering, then he started coming in and bringing trauma after trauma after trauma. That was that fragmentation, hitting you to where you were so scattered. Your light within you was so scattered that you were of no heavenly good. Light and faith are supposed to be honed in like a laser beam. They're supposed to be honed in. Single eye focus, single eye faith. If you've got a laser beam, you've got laser beam faith, nothing can stop you. Those are usually intense vessels that operate like that. But if you're scattered, meaning that your whole life has been shattered through fragmentation, then you'll try to live off of the weakest or not the weakest, but the strongest sense of self that you think you have. You'll try to pick a piece of yourself, and you'll become a chameleon to everybody. You'll be whoever anybody wants you to be, never really knowing who you are. So you wind up barren, you wind up frustrated, you wind up agitated and empty, barren, poverty-stricken, with witchcraft ruling and reigning over you, aka Jezebel. She's the mother of witchcraft, the mother of bitterness. The gatekeeper of bitterness lets her in. So as we fail to deal with these generational cursings in our lives and in our bloodlines, if we fail to do that, which 85% of the body has done, then the enemy just shows up and keeps ransacking your bloodline and keeps ransacking your life. And he hinders you from stepping back up into position to rule and reign, to help set your bloodline free. Hello, why do you think, thank you, Lord, why do you think your forefathers stand at the bowels of heaven and they root you on? They're like, come on, you can do it, Brenda. You can do it, Claire. You can do it, Tammy Holt. You can do this. You're going to set us all free. You're going to set us all free. All it takes is one of you to burst through, and you burst the whole bloodline through. We're waiting for you to do it. You can do this. Is that intense? It's pretty intense truth. That's what's going on. That's why you're here. So, as we kept God's ordinances, though, our blessings continued to grow and grow until Satan began to attack our bloodlines and pick off God's family piece by piece, or vessel by vessel, because of what we didn't know. We all die for a lack of wisdom and understanding, right? So the Christian people of America were like a morning cloud in the dew, vanishing. You know how dew vanishes? When the sun hits it, or when fire hits it, heat hits it. And our vanishing occurred when we lost our loyalties to God, when his directives didn't suit us. We became more fleshly bound instead of heavenly bound, more fleshly oriented instead of staying in the spirit. Your power's in the spirit, by the way. You're called to be like God. You're made in his image, right? Well, that goes as far in some people's mentality as far as I'm a child of God. But what if you're so made in God's image? And he told his disciples before he was resurrected, guess what? When I'm resurrected, you're going to do even greater things than me. And I'm thinking, wow, I had to wrap my head around that. But what he meant by that was that you're going to be even doing the same things God did through the creative abilities of God within you. God gave you all power, Luke 10:19, to trample on snakes and scorpions and anything that exalts itself above the throne of God. Get some water. To help you learn to rule and reign in heavenly places. But what does that mean? And I don't want to go too far into this because I know some of your levels aren't higher than the spirit, so I don't want to overwhelm your spirit, man. But if I'm made in God's image and I'm seated with him in heavenly places, and he's telling me, hey, you're going to command angels, you're going to judge angels, that means I've got some pretty staunch firepower there. Unless I don't believe it, unless I'm more earthbound than I am heavenly bound. So that's why it's more important for me to focus. And I knew this for a long time. It was very important for me to get free. I didn't know why, but all my life, ever since I was a little kid, since I was born, my feet hit the ground running. I was in a hurry to get somewhere. I didn't know why. So God has been giving all of his front runners directives like this. He's made us all pretty much in a hurry to get somewhere. We didn't know why. Because God was trying to get you to the head of the pack to help set your bloodlines free, to get your bloodlines back into realignment with his spirit. And so with many still operating from this place of immaturity, by the way, some people haven't chose to obey it. That's why you're not getting along with everybody in your bloodline right now. You're on a different spiritual page than they're on because they've chosen to stay the same and the cloud moved on without them. And you didn't have any choice because you chose to continue moving with the cloud. And so God's like, but worry not, little flock. Worry not. What I do for one, I do for all. And as you come up, you pull the whole bloodline up every time you come up. Every single time. Whether they come, you can come kicking and screaming or you can come, but either way, you're going to come. And I've known that for years too. So because people, if we think of it like this in the flesh, if people are locked into the flesh, people want what they want without ever considering what God says or directs us to do and how his word preserves us. And it's just our own stubborn pride that gets in the way. So that's what God is saying in this hour. Even when this people group brought sacrifices, because there are so many people in the church right now that are locked into this mindset of, well, I'm doing what God says I should be doing. I'm going to church every Sunday. Well, you may show up and you may sit your butt in a pew, but it doesn't mean you know God. That sounds harsh. That sounds really, can't believe you said that to me. Pout, pout, pout. But I'm serious, because then they're not consistent in their private life with the image they present in their public life, and they live two lives. And so here we have all these people acting like hell in the church, and they're abusing people, and they're manifesting in Jezebel, and they're acting like their peers at work, because the world doesn't know any better. And God's like, hey, whoa, I called you to a different standard. Where did you put your brain? But yet we continue abusing the please forgive me clause. I always say that to people. You're abusing the please forgive me clause. And yet you're continuing to do the same thing over and over and over and over, as if God didn't take notice. Oh, and by the way, let me just clue you in on something. We're heading into 2021. We're about how many weeks out? 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks out in 2021? You've got 2.5 weeks to get your butt in gear. I'm not lying. For anybody out there who's living a double life, I'm not being mean. I'm just being me. And I am who I am. I can't help but be who God made me to be. And maybe my finesse isn't as genteel, but I'm just telling you point blank, hoping that it hits home. For anybody who listens to this later on, if you're doing things in private that you shouldn't be doing right now, now's not the time to be doing that. You need to get your butt in gear. You need to get aligned. Because within 2 weeks, it's already started. Judgment has increased at the next level now. That's where we're at. That's why God the Father's showing up. I already told you that. He's showing up on our calls. I've noticed the numbers are going down because people get afraid and they leave. Okay. Keep running. You're not going to run away from judgment. But if you'll stay and face the music and stay and face and deal with yourself and the things that the Lord is trying to put his finger on and get free, then you're free to be. There's so much more freedom in deliverance. There's freedom in Christ. And so instead of bringing our sacrifices and attending religious services with no actions that show the difference in the way that we live, many are learning to allow God to adjust their public life to match their private life. And so our private life is actually more important than our public life. What we present privately to the Lord. Do our actions behind the scenes match our actions in front of everybody else? And honestly, this is how I am all the time. You can ask Martine. I feel like I don't know any other way to be. I can't lie with a flip because I operate in a double-sided sort of truth. I've never been able to lie with a flip. But not that I want to. I've always been oriented towards truth, because even if it hurts people, I mean, wouldn't you rather be, especially if you know someone loves you, wouldn't you rather have someone tell you the truth that cared about you and loved you than somebody that just allowed you to wallow and set you up for a bigger heartache of being judged by God? That's not love. That's somebody that is kind of narcissistic. They want to set you up for failure. I don't set people up for failure. I set people up for success. And even though the truth hurts them, it's like, look, man, I love you enough to tell you the truth. I don't want this to happen to you. And then I've watched some people go down that road anyway. And some people, it cost them their life. With a young woman that I ministered to at one time, that was tough. That was about 20 years ago. And she had so much potential. And the Lord warned her, if you leave this environment and you go back out into your old lifestyle, I'll bring you home. That's what he said. And he was true to his word. He did exactly what he said he was going to do, because she tested him. So there are no substitutes for obedience. If you have burning desires, make sure they're under God's control. Don't be like a cake unturned or half-baked with no depth to your religious experience. God wants depth. He wants authenticity. He wants genuine relationships with you while providing you with the ability to have genuine relationships with each other. And some of you don't realize that your private actions have made you substandard. Did you know that? Less than, found wanting, to where God cannot flow near or through your vessels. Are you a weapon that God can depend on? Do you realize you're a weapon? You can be. You can also be a weapon he can continually pull out of his arsenal or out of his armament room to utilize in times of war. Remember, he tells us to be ready with a word in due season. Well, he is the word. So he's saying, be ready for the word to flow through you, for the Spirit of God to flow through you anytime he wants. Anytime he wants. But if we're all off over here doing our own things and opening up ourselves to every other little G, or every little desire, every whim that flits by us, then we subject ourselves to being kind of put on a shelf, if you will. So because most of God's children don't realize how crucial it is to have God flowing through their vessels in due season, by the way, this is called due season. What is due season? Due season is the season you step into when the devil shows up or blessings are supposed to show up, or the season that God has you show up through himself. It's all dependent upon which God you serve, little g or big G. So with the second two, the blessings in the Spirit of God, those are usually big G. But the first one always to tempt you is the little g. Little g will always show up, always saying, hey, Susie Christinelli, or hey, Big Bread G. You know, it won't hurt you to do this one time. It won't hurt, You've been walking with God for so long. You got this under control. It won't hurt you. Come on. You got this. You just go back to God and ask him for forgiveness. But every time that you submit to the little g, you open up that gate of temptation wider and wider and wider. Every time. Every time. And then you set yourself up to be judged. I'm not pointing you two out, by the way. I just read your names at random. And the Lord is saying, do you realize that any spirit outside of love is not me? That's what God is saying. It's based on Lamentations 3:37-38. If God didn't speak it, it has to fall to the ground. This is what we're seeing in the world. This is what we're seeing in society. We're seeing it in the church. We're seeing a bunch of immature people that have chosen not to grow up. They're people that have chosen to operate in spirits outside of God. They've chosen to serve the little g's. And here we sit with a bunch of, forgive me for what I'm getting ready to say. God told me to use this word. I'm serious. But he said, here we sit with a bunch of immature sheep hanging on to the tit of God. They're still suckling, if you will. Just like they were when they were brand new babes in Christ. And this is 20 years later when we should be feeding them meat. We should be watching them grow up and mature and training up other warriors. And instead of that, here we have a bunch of 40-year-olds, 50, 60, 70, 80-year-olds still acting like they did when they were teenagers. I'm not lying. Or in their 20s. They still have the same temper tantrums. They're manipulative and controlling. They're stuck in religion, traditions of man, doctrines of demons. And they don't know the difference. They don't know. And they're demanding that everybody do what they said they should do. Because they know better. They're older. They abuse their position of age when, hello, God's no respecter of men. When he does for all. David was a young king. Saul was older. So age makes no difference to God. It's the vessel's willingness to stay pure and clean and staying free from the things of the world, which allow it to be set apart so God can flow through it. That's the key. It's not an old concept. It's a brand new it's not a new concept. This is old. This is something that's been around for a while. God's been the same yesterday, today, and forever. Excuse me. It's not a new concept. God didn't reinvent the wheel when he started moving his people forward from each generation to generation. So we have a lot of people right now in the masses who have no power. They don't have any more power than the man in the moon, except the power they glean. Because we have a lot of people. I told my mom this the other day, actually. I was talking to my mom, and I said, do you realize how dangerous it is? I mean, I think it's a good thing that people are learning how to pray the word, but did they realize how dangerous it is to pray the word with an unclean spirit? Do you realize that? If you're serving little G's over here and you're praying the word and you're doing whatever you feel like doing, they made me mad. Speaking that word over there, or whatever you speak, the Lord bless you with the love of the Lord of Jesus Christ, whatever scripture you quote. And you're putting your mouth on the Lord, because God is the word. In the beginning was the word. The word was with God, and the word was God. And you're putting your mouth on holy things, on a holy thing, an entity. God is the word. And you're using it for unholy things. So because we now have vessels with broken down courts, broken down walls, and broken down gates, they've latched on to the one thing that gives them power, because they've lost all their power. And then they're demanding to be right, saying, I'm praying the word, but you're praying it with an unholy spirit. You're praying it with a little G attached to you. And you're abusing what little bit of authority you have, and you're about to get set up for judgment. God says, don't put your mouth, don't use a holy thing with the unholy. Don't mix the holy with the unholy. Don't do that. Because it's just like Aaron's sons. When Aaron's sons came in mixing strange fire and doing whatever they felt like they wanted to do in the presence of a holy God, God has to be true to himself. He has to be true to his word. He struck them dead. And people are thinking, because we haven't seen it, a whole lot of that in our lifetime, we are moving into those times. We've been hearing this for a while now. And see, when God does a thing, he prepares his people for it slowly, sometimes quickly, depending upon where you're at in that movement of God. But then we start seeing things unfold, and that becomes our norm. We've now moved into the place where the body's learning to move with the cloud, moving with the Spirit of God. Remember? And when we see that, it's the same thing that Israel went through with Egypt when they came out of Egypt. When we see that happening, we know God the Father is there. God the Father was the one that talked to Moses. He said, go tell them the I am sent you. He went on the top of the mountain and had his burning bush experience. He was meeting with God the Father. That's why this is so imperative that we obey in this season. God the Father is showing up. Oh my Lord, I'm getting hit with the anointing big time right now. So when we think that we're something, brandishing the attitudes of man, or ain't I something, or look at me, I've got power in my prayer, kind of a thing. When it's only the word used in an unholy way, we're fooling ourselves, not to mention those people around us. We're fooling ourselves, because your sin will find you out. Ephesians 5:11. God exposes the sins of the wicked. But the word does accomplish that which God sends it to do, but if used in an unholy way, it's considered testing God. It's testing God with your life, just like the devil did to Jesus in the desert. And God kind of frowns upon it. He does. In actuality, he hates it. Absolutely hates it. Because your mouth puts itself on God in an unholy way, and God is the word. So this is why God has called this church to get cleaned up. This is the place we're standing in now. This is why he's been telling us this for rev after rev after rev after rev. He's calling us to get ourselves cleaned up. He's trying to force us out from underneath all these unholy spirits in our bloodlines, so we can truly stand up in mega power, mega firepower. And I don't know about you, but I mean, I know it seems like it's a long process. Thank you, Holy Spirit. It can seem like it's like taking forever sometimes, because you have needs and you have dreams, and but I'm telling you this with all the love in my heart towards you. I don't know some of you that well, but I'm telling you this with all the love in my heart. If you will be about God's business, and I know this sounds like a cliche, but it's so true. If you will get your eyes off you, even in your most dire hour, and you're like, well, Dr. Missy, you don't understand what I'm going through. You're right. I don't. I really, really don't. But I do, because I've been there. I've been there when I didn't have 2 pennies to rub together, and I didn't have money to tithe. And I started giving stuff away, just kept giving my stuff away. I cleaned out my closets and I gave it away, just gave it away. And you know what he did every time? He gave it all back and then some. If I give stuff away now, because I'm a big giver, that's my favorite thing to do. Matter of fact, I just delivered, not that I'm trying to tell you my business, but I love Christmas for this one purpose. But I just delivered, because I was really looking forward to this today. Not that I'm getting off topic, I'm just telling you what I did. But I put together these little lunch boxes with all this candy in it, about 20 lunch boxes. And we go through Dunkin' every day. We usually kind of go to the same places every day around here just to formulate relationships with people and to minister to people, because all my family's in ministry. And we gave them all lunch boxes full of candy because I watch all the things and all the types of people they deal with. And the Lord told me, because, they need to know that people give back to them, because they give so much and they feel like they're unappreciated, and they feel like that, all they do is serve other people, and then nobody comes back and serves them from time to time. And I thought, well, how to, what do you want me to do? And he told me that, go give them, show them love. And he did. We didn't make a big to do about it, but I was about my Father's business. And even though I'm going through a hard time, if I am, I'm not. Although it's because if I am, I don't know it. Because my eyes, I just get so much joy out of serving. I get a lot of joy out of helping people. I do. It's my greatest joy. And it's a big rush when you get to see a life transform. That's a blast. That's a blast. When you see somebody come into the aha, oh my God, God is real. Yeah, he's real. But what's really annoying to me as a leader is when I see people who know better, even other leaders, they know better, but, and I have to say this, I say this with trepidation actually, and Lord, forgive me if I'm guilty of doing this myself. We have to be really careful not to boast lest we fall. Seriously, because pride goes before a fall. And when we think that we've arrived in some capacity, which I know none of us have, but it's being careful to know who's God and who's not, and it's not me. He is, because I've opened myself up to him. So it's imperative in this hour, when God calls us to get cleaned up, it's because he wants to use you. He wants to use you. He wants you to be in the champions, the hall of faith. He's trying to prepare you for your bloodline. You've been lifted up for such a time as this. And the problem is we have so many people floundering for lack of power, and they expect everybody else to do it for them in this season. And I can't walk your walk and you can't walk mine. That's the problem. So if we're going to continue walking and speaking the word, we need to be really, really careful how we do it. And we need to be following God's directives when he commands us to get free, so that we're doing things with God's standard. If we're gonna continue doing it our own way, then don't be surprised when judgment hits your house in 2021. The times are just that critical. God, he told me this morning, I'm wrapping this up and getting into the next topic, but he told me, he said, I've grown weary of religious spirits holding my people back. He said, because it's like the fiance who continually asks the woman, will you marry me? Will you marry me? They ask her 2 to 3 times, and by the 3rd or 4th time, the desire is kind of waning. He's like, wow, she's not that interested in me. Why am I wasting my breath? So God is seeing, bottom line, God is seeing who's truly wanting to serve him in this hour, and those who are only wanting to serve themselves. And he's weary of the other lovers. He's weary of your idols and the lack of sincerity that he's been witnessing in the flock. So the further separating has begun. You've heard it spoken. It's here. We just hit it 2 days ago. God's further separating the sheep from the goats, are those who give lip service to knowing God versus those who truly know God. So in the next 2 weeks, we're going to really see who knows the Lord as the King and the lover, and those who only know him by name. Those who live in the Holy of Holies versus those who want no more than to abide with their idols in the outer courts. Because it's one thing to know a man or God, but another to share and carry his name as your own. They're two different types of relating. You're fixing to find out who's really serving God. So we're going to move into 3 John 1 through 15, and it's called God's truth versus our truth. It's a vital part of life. And there's a guy in the Bible, his name was Gaius, and he demanded to walk and to work in the truth. He did everything he did, lived, breathed, slept. He slept the truth. He was able to welcome the truth even when it challenged his own narrative. Are you? Are you able to welcome the truth when it challenges your own narrative? Or be able to welcome God's people? Because when you welcome God's people, you welcome his truth. And it's what actually makes the local church healthy. But when we demand to walk out our own version of who we think truth is, do we begin to step off the beaten path? Because God's ways aren't our ways. The new place we've stepped into as a body is a very firm foundation for those who have been maintaining God's truth. It's a place of strength. I don't know about you, but the last couple of days I've been feeling the strength rise up around me. And I'm not lying and telling you, I get kind of concerned and making sure I'm like checking my P's and Q's. Am I aligned? Am I doing this right? Because it'll put the fear of God on you. It sincerely does. It makes you wonder about everything you're doing. And we've never walked where we're walking right now. We're walking in uncharted waters. So I don't take anything for granted. I test the spirit in all things, making sure that I'm listening to God, because I also know as we're stepping into these new places, the devil's hot on our tail to try to stop us. So we've got to be testing the spirit of everything we're listening to. Everything. Because the enemy's coming in trying to dupe us. And I'm seeing that too within the actions of people and the subtleties and the ways that the enemy uses people through their own weaknesses to try to dupe the sheep that are in alignment. And people don't know if they're doing that. It's one of those, Father, forgive them for they know not what they do kind of a thing. But it is up to you to be able to discern correctly and to be able to see long distance to know if someone's working out of their flesh, out of their emotions, or are they truly aligned with the spirit of love. That's just wisdom. Again, I'm not a tabia. The new place we stepped into is a very firm foundation for those who have been maintaining God's truth. It's a place of strength like we've never known, as God has pulled us up into a fortification of protection supernaturally. For those who have chosen to walk their own way, they'll quickly find that all those protections have been pulled away. I'm telling you about 2021. All those protections have been pulled away, and they are exposed to the demonic elements around them. That's how you're going to know. Are you being exposed? Are you taking hits all of a sudden? You need to do a heart check. Lord, am I aligned? Meaning if the devil is able to attack you, then you're exposed and you've come out from underneath God's protection. Simple as that. So the only thing that can bring you back underneath his protection for 2021 is deliverance. So Gaius had a body as healthy as his soul was, because he only lived in the truth. This is the place God's calling us for this next season. And from now on. And it's going to become as black and white as you can ever imagine. It's going to become that plain to see. You can't deny it. You're either God's or you're not. So we're going to move into Psalms 126, 1 through 6. And guess what this is called? Deliverance from evil. That's what this is called. I just found this so fascinating how God is moving this hour. He just keeps turning the pages. And how we're moving forward. And I know we're heading at about 49. Ooh, we're over. I got to go. But I do want to say this before I finish up. It's like, I know everybody's thinking, or not everybody, but maybe some of you are thinking, but Dr. Missy, I'm going as fast as I can. I'm doing everything I know to do. So, what I do in those moments, I always go to him and I'm like, Lord, I may not like the answer to this, but if there's anything if I'm in denial about anything about myself, put your finger on it. Just take it. Just surprise me and take it all. Just take it. Surprise me. Let me wake up free tomorrow. And if you want to bring it to my attention, then bring it to my attention. I'm willing to deal with it, but have a willing heart. That's the way to get free. So the greatness of God, getting deliverance from evil, is the greatness of God. Deliverance is just the beginning, but God always wants to do something more. He wants to make his rivers of blessings. And if he does, it's so he can share it with others. And the Lord's saying it allows us to get to work on the harvest. It allows us to plant seeds, to water them, and to help bring in the sheaves. That's what our calling is for. And it's part of being his true child and learning to come deeper into a spirit of love. It's a part of maturity. We're going to wrap up with Proverbs 29:12-14. And this kind of summarizes it all, if you want to be honest. But it speaks about if a ruler pays attention to leaders, talking about leaders, if leaders listen to liars, then all of their advisors will be wicked. Don't we see this going on all around us right now on the government mountain? And we're seeing it in the media mountain too. We're seeing it everywhere. We're seeing it in church. We're seeing it in our families. We're seeing it everywhere. And then the next statement says, the poor and the oppressor have this in common. The Lord gives sight to the eyes of both, meaning that we all have the opportunity to change. God's no respecter of persons. What he does for one, he does for all. And if a king judges the poor fairly, meaning if leaders look at life the way God sees life or the way God sees situations, their thrones will last forever. Their leadership will be maintained by the Lord. God will keep them installed. If this is you, because you're called to be a king and a priest, a queen and a priest, son and daughter of Issachar, ruling and reigning in heavenly places, God will keep you in position. That's what we're saying. Are you encouraged today? We're topping at about 52 minutes over the hour, and I'm sorry I went a little bit late today, but if you like what you heard today, we do the 15-minute revs on Mondays and on Fridays, and if you like it, please hit the subscribe button in the upper right-hand corner. Again, my book comes out on December the 11th, I think they said. I'll be finding more about that. I'll let you know on here before you go buy it. They've got it listed on Amazon. Do not buy it yet because I made changes to it. And so the changes aren't going to take effect in the hardcover or in the paperback, probably for about another month, but you can buy it on Kindle probably the next week. So let you know when I find more out about that, but you can get it before Christmas. It's going to be talking to you about exactly what you've been going through and giving you tools and weapons about how to overcome it. But definitely stay tuned. We're going to be keeping you abreast of all the different things that are going on within the political arena in the next and upcoming days, as well as keeping you moving forward as a front runner. So with that, Merry Christmas. Hope you're having a great weekend. I hope you're having a great week. And I look forward to seeing you Wednesday on the Compass. If not then, on Friday on the 15-minute Rev. Bye, guys.